Welcome back to another educational video with myself, Jessica Benge, and my dear friend, David Moyer from Keller Williams. Today, we were going to chat about something that David is noticing, not necessarily in our respective market here in Ohio, but as you know, David knows a lot of people across the country, but he is noticing a lot of dialogue, a lot of chatting about foreclosures and short sales. And we realized we hadn't done an educational video on this sort of topic. So David, let's just break it down. I don't know if we're doing the differences between foreclosures and short sales, or let's just dive into this topic.
Sure. Yeah, this really hasn't been in our vocabulary for a long time. You and I had both been doing this for quite some time, and all the way back to 2008 and 9, this was a huge part of our vocabulary. But ever since then, we've kind of put it out of sight, out of mind. And especially since the big boom back in 2020 and 2021, that was the last thing you ever thought you would hear again because the houses were continuing to appreciate in such an exponential factor. And you're thinking, well, how could anybody possibly ever go through this? Well, what we're starting to, I don't want to say starting to see, because this is definitely not anything that I know I'm not being an alarmist, and I'm not saying that this is going to be anything that's going to be a nationwide impact. Foreclosures and short sales are just kind of a natural wave in any sort of housing economy. And a lot of times they happen with no fault of the homeowner themselves. Sometimes they happen because of circumstances the homeowner just can't help. Sometimes they happen because of circumstances the homeowner probably could have avoided and didn't. Just because you see these things happen, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen to you or in your area. But it's also good to know what your options are and what these things actually mean, because they're not necessarily the most scary things in the world. And they're actually are tools for you if you ever find yourself in this situation. So the reason we're talking about this is a lot of my connections have been talking about on the East and West Coast. They're seeing some small pockets that are shifting in different directions, where somebody had bought a house in 2023, the end of 2023, which was kind of right at the top, the peak. And we're not going down, but we're not going up at the same rate we were for a long time. Maybe they're relocating, maybe their job has changed, maybe they're downsizing or something. And because they're not getting that appreciation like the way they were, they're not able to actually regain any sort of equity. Maybe they paid more than what they were comfortable with or what it appraised for because they had 10 other people that were bidding on that house. And that's just what they had to do at the time. So their equity isn't there necessarily. There's a lot of factors. And so when they go to sell and they're looking at what their home is worth, sure, it may be worth more than what they bought it for, but not enough to actually cover everything by the time they sell, their taxes, their fees, and everything like that. They may be a little bit upside down. Because of that, they could go into foreclosure because they have to move. If they're being forced to move, they can no longer afford to live there. They no longer make their payments on their house. And you don't automatically go into foreclosure. The bank gives you plenty of opportunities to fix the situation, right? Typically, the bank's going to give you, foreclosure is not overnight. If you see a house that's in foreclosure, it's been unpaid for and potentially vacant for quite some time. We're talking at least probably a year, because this is a court proceeding. This isn't just hey, you haven't paid your rent for 3 months, time to get out. This is you haven't paid your mortgage for 6 months. We've given you final warning. The sheriff has evicted you. We've gone through the court system. Now we're going through the sheriff system. Now we're selling it on the open market. Oh, would you think that's about right in terms of the time frame?
Yes, I do think you're correct. It's not quick. It's, they do give people notices through the mail. They try to call them. They use the mail a lot. I think what's imperative to know is that if people are thinking this is their only option, they do need to reach out to somebody like you. Yes, you're a real estate agent, but you survived this crazy market in 2008 where there were a ton of foreclosures. So you do have the experience. So if you were to get yourself out of the situation of a pre-foreclosure is what they call it, or a start, typically, they're going to work with you. You're going to give them a large sum of money. And then depending on how quickly you interact with the institution, they may work with you so much that they're going to tack some stuff on the back end of your loan, right? So they may okay, we'll give you some breathing room. But if you don't communicate with them, forget it. they're going to want you to give them a large amount of money in order to retain that home. So if you've started this whole thing where you're not paying, something's happened in your life, and if you don't communicate with them, they are going to basically give you something that's very difficult to get it back on track. But if you communicate to them, they can give you
Well,
ferment or something like that.
you can do a forbearance.
And that's when they're going to put it on the back end of your loan, which back on the end of the loan means that that's just going on to your payoff when you actually do sell the home.
Yeah, there were a lot of forbearances that happened in 2020 when the COVID crisis hits, and a lot of people became unemployed for the first time in a long time. And those were great products. Some of those forbearances were good, some were not. Some of them did have those payments at the very end of their mortgage. Some of them were balloon payments that became due at the end of a 12-month period. So, you definitely want to make sure you know what the fine print of those forbearance
Fine
periods
print.
are. A lot of people that had those forbearances, by the time they got back on track, they did a refinance so they could get that forbearance off of their mortgage. So that's one option that's there. When you go to close on a mortgage, one of the documents you actually sign that says if you get behind on your payments, your lender is going to connect you actually with a financial counselor, and they're going to connect you with somebody. Your lender doesn't want you to get behind. I mean, first of all, your lender would like to have their money back that they're loaning you for the house. And so they're going to put you in contact with someone that's going to literally get on the phone with you and say, what's going on? Plus, why you're missing your payment. Because they want to know exactly what's happening because they have those programs in place. And trust me, the bank does not want to. Everyone thinks that the lenders and the banks want to foreclose on your properties. They can grab that and they can do. No, they don't want to do that. It costs them a lot of money to go through the court system. I mean, I don't want to put a figure on it, but they're going to be behind themselves if they have to go through that process. Not to mention the state in which the house could possibly be in, especially if they're foreclosing in the wintertime and all of that. So they don't want to go through that process. One of the other things that we used to see a long time ago that we could possibly see again if somebody is looking for a way to, if they're looking to move and they're behind or they're upside down in their house. When I say upside down, it means you owe less than what the home is worth. It's called a short sale. And a short sale is a great product. It is still a hit on your credit, similar to what a foreclosure would be, but it is less of a hit on your credit. So it's easier to recover from that down the road. And essentially what you're doing is you are in good faith working with your mortgage company to say, I'm behind. I can't sell my house for what it's worth. I'm going to do everything I can to take care of the property, work with a realtor. I'm going to sell it in good faith for what it is worth. It's going to be less than what's owed. Can I do this? Takes a long time. You have to work with the short sale department. You have to work with the title company hand in hand and go through the approval process. You have to get everything in writing from the bank that says, yeah, we approve this. Yes, move forward. But the bank will allow you to sell the property for less than what is owed if you can prove that that is the top dollar you can actually get for the house.
With the leftover balance, just curious, do they charge it off or?
Well, it depends on the lender. There's different ways you can do that. They can just charge that off. There are some circumstances where that can actually be charged off. Well, it can appear as not income, but it's taxable to you. So, if you were to come up, let's say $20,000 short, you may have, $20,000 that you are, taxable at the end of the year or something like that when you're, filing your taxes with the IRS. There could be a small loan or something that is outside of that, but typically it's charged off. And that's just kind of the trade-off. They're charging it off. They're releasing you from this debt, but it is going to appear in your credit score as a charged off debt for the next typically 4 years.
Okay. Yes. Yes.
Am I
And
right
they
in the
do
4
look
years on
at
that?
it in the lending world as like a bankruptcy seasoning time. Yeah. But it's different than a foreclosure. So for a foreclosure and versus bankruptcy, you're right. The short sale would be the better option.
It's a better option. It's not easy. If you're going that route, if that's the only option that you have because you have to move, definitely want to work with someone that knows what they're doing with a short sale and understands what those short sales are. It takes a little bit of legwork on the seller's behalf. I can walk you through what to do, what department, what to say. You got to do a lot of homework. So it's not easy. It can be done.
If a client is buying a short sale,
Mhm.
like what do you say? I mean, what do you do? What's that process? So right? We know you're going into the listing side, but if a client is buying a home and are they putting into the disclosures, by the way, this is a short sale?
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely want to know what I tell all my clients this. I say, listen, this is a short sale. You can still do your inspections, you can still do all the things. More than likely, that seller obviously is not going to be able to negotiate repairs or anything with you. More than likely, it's going to be as is because, listen, they're already upside down on this house. So they're probably not going to spend money on it. If it's a severe habitability issue, there may be something the bank is willing to do, but more than likely, no. And it's going to take time because what you're going to do is you're going to negotiate with that seller the price and the terms, and then that has to be sent off to the bank to sign off on. And that may take 7 days, 10 days, 12 business days. And so you're just waiting for the bank to send that back to you. And until then, that property is not pending. You have a verbal agreement with that seller, but you're not really pending. It's all kind of good faith. So it's nerve wracking. Can somebody else write another offer on it? Yeah, they probably could. So it takes some patience. Okay.
How long would it take them to close then? Because
Once you get the approval and everything like that, if the other agent on the other side has done short sales before and they've already gone through the title process and everything, and you're working with the title company, it's closing shouldn't take all that long. It's the approval process and the upfront paperwork that takes the most amount of time.
okay, good to know.
Yeah. So that's gonna be the most important thing is how much legwork has the listing agent already done? If you're writing an offer on that, have they done short sales before and setting the expectations? So if the listing agent doesn't really know what a short sale is and they're going to attempt to do one and they haven't done any paperwork whatsoever, it's going to be a little bit of a nightmare. And you'd be prepared for that and set those expectations up front. But those are your options. So it's not the worst thing in the world. Do I think we're going to see that huge wave hitting here in Ohio, like we're starting to see in pockets on the East and West Coast? I don't, I can't predict anything, but we've never experienced the same things our East and West Coast markets have experienced. I always kind of look at it as this ripple effect where these huge waves crash on the coast. And by the time they reach us, it's just this little trickle of a tidal and it doesn't really impact us that much. So this is more educational than it is anything. It's not a red flag by any means. Because you're going to see it on the news and
Yeah.
you're going to see people talking about it and you're going to think, oh my gosh, I'm watching CNN or this and they're talking about this, David, what's happening? Well, they're talking about it in terms of the entire nation. Let's focus right here on the Ohio Valley. And that's what we're more concerned about.
But as a homeowner, you really, this whole topic is making me think that you just need a very experienced and intelligent real estate agent, right? In your back pocket. Because if this even enters your mind, the first call should be to an agent that has been through a market like that, understands the differences between, this and can give the consumer the options. Obviously, we don't want you to foreclose or short sale on anything, but they exist for a reason. There's a need for them at times, but how can we give you your best solution before you have to go down that road, right?
Right. Yeah. And it's, I've had sellers that have called me, not even my clients, but, they've had friends or family that have said, why don't you call David? And they've been in this foreclosure process and they're confused. They're getting these letters and they're scared and they don't know what's happening. And I'm in foreclosure. What can I do? And everyone's telling them, pack your stuff. It's game over. What they don't realize is they're actually in the middle of a legal scenario where they're supposed to be appearing in court and they have the opportunity to actually catch up. And next thing you know, they realize, oh, you're telling me if I write this check for $10,000, I'll be caught up and it'll be a ding on my credit, but the bank will back off and we'll be out of this process. Yes. And so I've seen people get out of it before because life happens. You're in the hospital and you forget to make a payment or something bounces. It just happens. And so call somebody that actually can walk you through these processes and knows what they mean, and then we'll get you out of it.
And
Best we
today's
can.
time, you get so many phone calls that, you know what I mean? They could be calling you and you're ignoring it because you think it's a spam call, right?
Yeah.
I know that's the case for me.
Yeah, 100%.
So many spam calls, but wonderful news. Great news. So if you have any questions about foreclosures or short sales, or if that's even crossed your mind, just reach out. get educated. This video just is scratching the surface, and each scenario is different, and David can go over that. You can consult with him. He does not charge any money for consultations. All right. Well, thanks again for your knowledge, and until next time.
All right, we'll see you.
See ya.